So the hosts on the show The View had a pretty tense debate and exchange on the issue of Israel and Palestine. Susan Mediaite Joy Behar visibly dismayed after Sonny Hostin suggests Israel is the side doing war crimes after Hamas terror attack. So I actually think that this, I already watched the clip, and I feel like this headline is a little misleading because Sonny Hostin does not deny Hamas committed war crimes by massacring innocent civilians. She's just also stating there's collective punishment being done against all Palestinians in reaction to it. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm curious if all of you find this as frustrating as I did, because most of the people who are commenting clearly don't know dick about this conflict in the slightest. So let's watch and then we'll react.
I echo the sentiment that Hamas is to blame for all of the bloodshed happening right now in Israel and Palestine. A lot of people counter that as if there's a counter to, the Gaza lives in horrid conditions, which I concede, but I put that on the shoulders and the backs of Hamas.
That's just incorrect. Gaza is controlled by Israel. Egypt controls one border, Israel controls the rest, and they control the flow of food and resources. They control the power and the water, which, by the way, the majority of the water is not even really drinkable. It's dirty. It's contaminated. So Israel is permanently occupying Gaza. Again, that's not debatable. It's been described as an open-air prison, and that's a fair description. There's no political rights, no human rights. It's basically a permanent police state. So to just say, well, that's all Hamas. Hamas sucks. They are a religious, fundamentalist, extremist group that was elected in 2006 because they took the hardest line against Israel, and the people in Gaza had very anti-Israel feelings because they're occupying them, but they've held on to power since then. And so to just put it all on Hamas is dumb, lazy, sloppy, uneducated, ignorant, but it's the thing that's in vogue in mainstream media because Hamas did do a barbaric, savage terror attack against innocent Israeli civilians. And so that set in mainstream media, and then everything since then has been Israel has a right to defend itself. Hamas are terrorists. These people are evil. These people are barbaric and brutal and Arab Nazis, as Brian Mast, the representative from Florida, said, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, look, the stuff about Hamas being a terror group, totally fair. Let's not pretend like there hasn't been collective punishment in reaction to that from Israel, where they're cutting off food, water, electricity to Gaza, bombing apartment buildings and mosques and marketplaces. Already over 2,000 killed in Gaza, surpassing the death rate from civilians in Israel from the Hamas terror attack. Over 700 kids already. Let's not pretend they just get to wash their hands of it because they were attacked. That's the same thinking like, yeah, the U.S. gets to wash its hands of the 200,000 innocent Iraqis we killed because of 9/11. No, we don't. We don't. All right, let's continue.
While aid is coming in, they're diverting it to build rockets and weapons. So they're not getting food and water because Hamas is in power right now.
Let's be clear. A lot of these tunnels that Hamas uses are also tunnels where they bring in building materials and food because there's a total blockade. Israel controls everything that goes in there. So the tunnels are not just for weapons, they're also for food and resources to live. And that's, of course, not brought up.
Israel issues warnings saying, get out. Hamas says, please stay, because they need them to up the body count. They don't care about their own lives. They're jihadists. They definitely don't care about your life or my life, and they would come for all of us. But the surrounding nations deserve a little blame, too. They are all pro-Palestine, and yet they're rejecting these refugees.
That includes Jordan, Syria, and
Egypt.
Turkey.
So the U.S. right now is telling Egypt, open that so they can get out. And everyone's saying, but what about the people there? We're all saying, what about the people that are stuck there? The surrounding Palestinian, pro-Palestinian nations need to open their doors. They're all saying, we don't want trouble, we don't have room, but go Palestine. That is hypocritical.
Let's be clear. Right now, the U.S. is trying to get Egypt to let Palestinians in to create a tent city in the desert. Now, I guess that's better than dying in an Israeli bomb attack, but also, let's be clear, the Palestinians don't want to leave their homes. They want the occupation to stop. And this is brought up like, well, the solution would be just go to the surrounding Arab nations. Well, a lot of Palestinians don't want to do that. They want to end the occupation.
Well, everyone wants to blame Israel. No one wants to do their part.
Right.
But no one will negotiate with terrorists. No rightfully elected government will negotiate with terrorists.
Well,
negotiating with terrorists happens literally all the time. You make peace with your enemies. Now, look, some people are unappeasable, and any deal you would make with them would never be upheld. Is that true in some circumstances? Yes. It's also not true in other circumstances. So I just hate, oh God. It's like they're not even trying. This is just like fortune cookie level pablum about an issue with which they have no knowledge.
There will be no
another thing that Golda Meir said was, you cannot negotiate with people who want to kill you.
Yeah.
Are there some people in Hamas, are there some Palestinians who want to kill Jews because they have a deep religious hatred and ethnic hatred? Yes. Are there people in any population that want to kill others or are against others for ethnic reasons and religious reasons? Yes. Are there Israelis who want to kill Palestinians for ethnic hatred and religious hatred? Yes. Is that the majority? No. Are there some people who are really pissed at the government of Israel because of the illegal occupation and the apartheid system and the permanent police state and having no political rights and no human rights and having 14-year-olds get sniped by IDF soldiers when they're not doing anything wrong? Are there some people who have legitimate material disputes with the government of Israel? Absolutely. And so when you say, well, they all want to kill us, so we can't talk to them. Well, you want to kill all them, they want to kill all you, so what do you, just permanent war or genocides galore? Is that the solution here? Like, this kind of thinking is, oh, Jesus Christ. It's like we're never going to break the cycle of violence with total idiots who are calling the shots here. And look at the reasoning is just, well, you can't negotiate with terrorists. They want to kill you. Why would you negotiate with them? Do they all want to kill you? That every one of them wants to kill every one of you? All of them? Yeah, and people bring up, oh, the Hamas charter says, yeah, like we want to wipe Israel off the map or whatever it is. It was also either in 2017 or 2018 where they finally conceded, all right, we'll accept a two-state solution along the 1967 borders. They don't bring that up, do they? They don't bring that up. That certainly not all Palestinians are genocidal, and not all Israelis are genocidal. You need cooler heads to prevail. They're not interested in solutions. Jesus Christ.
That's what's going on now. Go ahead, Sonny, you want to say something?
No, I look at this from a legal perspective, and I think that we all know that Hamas has been designated a terror organization, just like many other terror organizations have had this designation, like the Proud Boys here in the United States.
I don't think they have the same death count. I don't think they have the same death count. But to be fair, the IDF and Hamas don't have the same death count either. The IDF murks way more innocent civilians than Hamas does.
But I do think that what we need to remember is that there is an international human rights body of law. And when you look at that law, part of it is retaliation against innocent civilians collectively is also terror and is also a war crime.
In other words, the IDF is committing war crimes, and they're doing terrorism by doing collective punishment against all the Palestinians in Gaza and killing innocent civilians. That is 100% accurate. But watch, he's going to trigger all these other women on the panel.
Those are not my words. Those are the words of the law. And the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said just last year when we were all talking about Ukraine, she said Russia's attacks against civilian infrastructure, especially electricity, are war crimes, cutting off men, women, children of water, electricity, and heating with winter coming. These are acts of pure terror, and we have to call it as such. And so what I'm saying is, yes, I think those that are around the other Arab countries, Israel actually bombed the only exit out of Palestine to Egypt.
That's true. That's true. The Biden administration is negotiating with Egypt to try to get them to set up a tent city in the desert for Palestinians. But yeah, Israel bombed that exit. She's spitting.
And Egypt cut off the second one because I also
The
think
Israeli
that
government-
Egypt is afraid in many respects and doesn't want to get involved in this conflict. I think many people don't want to get involved in this conflict, but we can't lose our humanity. We must get involved.
But just as a
in this
factual
conflict.
matter, the Israeli government is working with the Biden administration to try to get safe passage.
Yeah, they've been
try to get-
asking.
But they told 1.1 million people to evacuate from northern Gaza to southern Gaza. They said do it in a 24-hour period. That's not even possible. And we're just okay with, hey, you must leave the hospital. All these people who have no means or way in which they can do that or the ability to do that in some circumstances, you just have to leave there. We're all okay with that. That's all fine. And people spin it like that's very humanitarian of them. They told them to leave. What? We're pretending like this is anything other than a PR? And their plans are either ground invasion, total destruction, or total destruction through the air, or steal half of Gaza. Like, this is what we're looking at now. This is what we're looking at. Who cares how many civilians get hurt in the meantime or get killed in the meantime? We don't care. And we're really talking about this as if it's like, man, that was very nice of them to say, hey, 1 million of you leave your homes and go to the other side.
I think done an outstanding job in terms of trying to get the aid that Jordan has sent to Egypt to try to get it into the people. But when you have 2.2 million people stuck in an area, half of which are children, and you're
Don't you think
telling
Hamas
them-
attacking Israel
But can I
is
ask
the
the
reason
legal
that they have the
question?
problem now?
So, because Hamas attacked innocent civilians in Israel, now it is not Israel's responsibility to not attack innocent civilians in retaliation. That is some warped logic if I've ever heard it. Look at her face. She thinks she's nailing it. She thinks I just freaked you at that point. Wasn't the Hamas attack the problem in the first place? Well, if you're using that logic, wasn't the occupation the problem in the first place that then led to the Hamas terror attack? Right? If we're pawning off responsibility and agency for any action that's taken, we could keep playing that game. No, everybody has agency. Everybody has agency. The occupation is wrong. Hamas murking innocent people is wrong. Israel, in retaliation, doing collective punishment and murking innocent people is wrong. Each one of these things are wrong on their own merits, and the people who carried out the actions are responsible for those actions. I am giving everybody the most basic, elementary level moral breakdown of all time, and somehow it's controversial. So according to Joy Behar, it's the fault of Hamas that Israel is doing a medieval siege of Gaza and starving over 2 million people. Shutting off the water, shutting off the electricity, not allowing in the food, bombing apartments and mosques and hospitals and UN shelters. That's all Hamas's fault. Oh, my God.
Blinken is down there in the region right now trying to work with a diplomatic solution for these refugees. But I want to say, and I think this is very important, what Israel is saying consistently is, if you want your water, if you want your electricity, release our hostages. In my view, that's
exactly
not an irrational question.
It is irrational because the people who are being punished didn't take hostages. This isn't just hurting Hamas. This is hurting all Palestinians in Gaza, over 2 million people. You can't say that's not irrational. Yeah, so I get to hold... You are doing something wrong, taking innocent hostages. So in retaliation to that, I will starve innocent civilians. What? Well, if we can agree that hurting innocent civilians in any way, shape, or form is bad and wrong, then that is not a rational reaction. Oh, my God. Look, I'll say it again. It's very simple. Hamas, release the hostages. These are innocent people. They didn't do anything wrong. They're not some IDF sniper that killed a 14-year-old Palestinian. They're not the illegal, ultra-Orthodox settlers. You know, they're not Netanyahu, right? Release the hostages. And at the same time, Israel, stop with the collective punishment. Stop. These people didn't do anything wrong. Oh, my God.
Release our people that you are holding there as human shields.
And they should, but in the process, they should really refrain from committing war crimes or terror because they're going to lose the goodwill.
I do think it's very important.
I like how she's making reasonable points and everybody's just like ignoring it or talking over her. Really productive conversation.
Of Defense Lloyd Austin, who was the director of CENTCOM, said Hamas is worse than ISIS. There's no equivocating as far as the terror.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Hamas is definitely a terror group. There's no doubt about it. They just killed innocent civilians. 100% condemnation. ISIS does the same, except the goal of ISIS is global jihad. The goal of Hamas is set up a Palestinian state. Now, they want basically Islamic law to be the law of the land for a free Palestinian state. Free. I use in air quotes. But there is a huge difference there. ISIS would attack any and all targets globally because they want a global caliphate, a global Islamic caliphate. I love how now to go after Hamas, we're downplaying the extreme nature of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And by the way, just let's be clear, Hamas and ISIS are enemies. They're enemies. In fact, they fought each other at one point. I think Hamas rounded up all ISIS supporters in the Palestinian territories at one point. These people don't know what the fuck they're talking. It drives me, oh my God. Let's get a bunch of cackling idiots in a room and have them give their opinion on something they don't know dick about. That's what this show is.
Yeah. This is a group that you cannot reason with. There is not a diplomatic solution with Hamas specifically, but we will stand with helping innocent.
And is there any legal?
We have to go.
Is there any legal bearing on Hamas for withholding water from their own people, or is that okay?
Well, the legal bearing on Hamas is for murking innocent Israeli civilians and taking innocent hostages. That's the crime that they committed. They're not the ones who are withholding water from the civilians. Now, you can make the backlash argument, the retaliation was started by that. But again, if you use the backlash argument, you could say the Hamas terror attack was because of the occupation anyway, right? Moral crimes don't justify moral crimes in retaliation. That's the point. The people who have agency, who are keeping water from right now half of Gaza, it's actually more than that because even the south, they turn the water on, but a lot of the pipes are destroyed. But anyway, that is Israel's issue. They're doing that. That's a crime they are committing.
Humanity values principles. The law doesn't apply to Hamas. They are a terrorist organization. They don't care about Palestinians. They care about annihilating Israel.
They started this. That's the part you have to remember.
They started it. End of conversation. Okay, well, we got attacked on 9/11. The U.S. did. So Al-Qaeda started it. So by that logic, we can justify the war in Afghanistan that we did and wasted $2 trillion and killed untold numbers of innocent civilians. We can justify the $7 trillion war in Iraq where we killed at least 200,000 innocent civilians. We can justify Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib and illegal and unconstitutional torture that we did, by the way, of innocent people in many circumstances. Well, they started it. Oh, okay. So that's a get-out-of-jail-free card. We get to commit any crime we want because they started it. Again, by that same logic you're using. Well, Hamas is able to do what they did because of the occupation. So they get to kill innocent civilians because the occupation's illegal. Nobody buys that logic. No reasonable person buys that logic. So you cannot then use that same logic to say, well, we get to collectively destroy all innocent Palestinians because of what Hamas did. I told you guys this before. I'll say it one more time. I remember there was a time when I was doing my show where I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing my show. Everything I'm saying is so obvious. I'm just telling people things they already know. So, like, what good is my voice in the conversation anyway? That was a real thought that I had, a real feeling that I had. Watching what's unfolded with this war leads me to believe, oh my God, I was so incredibly wrong. These things that I'm saying that I think are super obvious are not even in the conversation, right? Like, nobody's pointing out the most obvious things. And it's just, it's like bloodlust galore and genocide galore and justifying it every step of the way. Really, really disturbing stuff. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.